Yeah, let's get it. Let's get it. Huddle up, Falcon fans. Come on in, all pandemics. Welcome to another episode of Atlanta Falcons Pandemic, the heartbeat of the Dirty Birds faithful, where the fans never waver and the passion never dies. I'm your host, Manuel McFarland, coming to you live from the heart of Falcons Nation. And today, guys, it's all about the legacy of former Atlanta Falcons legend, player number 11, Julio Jones. And guys, I have a controversial hot take for you guys today. You may even go as far as to call it a true travesty, if you want to call it that. But before we begin, guys, I have two questions for you guys, for all my Falcon fans, and to everyone listening. You don't even have to be a Falcon fan to enjoy or relate to this content today, because it's all about what Julio has done since he's been here in the league. But that first question, guys, has Julio Jones done enough to be mentioned in the all-time greats conversation? I think he has. That second question is, why is the NFL forgetting a legend like Julio Jones? I'm going to throw a third question in there. Is this the NFL's great heist of erasing the legacy of Julio Jones? In my opinion, guys, I think Julio was very passionate about the game, not only playing the game, but winning. So that kind of may have him in the light of having a bad attitude. You know what I mean? When you get passionate about something like that, especially playing football, and me myself, uh, I put on a different hat once that whistle is blown. I see nothing but black. You know, I saw nothing but black. But once that whistle is blown, the football is kicked. I got in a different mode. It was different. You know what I mean? But in this video, guys, we're going to take a deep dive into the career of Julio Jones, one of the most dominant wide receivers in the NFL history. You know, despite a decade of dominance and record breaking, impressive stats and accolades, Jones was inexplicably left off the CBS list of the best to never win it all. Guys, join me as I dive into this mystery of what really happened to Julio Jones and why he's not on that list and why he's not considered one of the best to have not won the Super Bowl. You know, with the Hall of Fame resume and all-time great Super Bowl catch, Julio Jones should be a poster child for players without a ring. If there was ever a commercial about players, great players who has never won a ring, Julio Jones' name, picture, and NFL footage should be the highlight. Nobody else deserves to be any higher. I don't, in my opinion. There are some greats that have played, and we're going to cover that here in just a second. But instead, he's forgotten, and we're exposing the shocking positional bias that allows the media to ignore his greatness. He was the face of the Atlanta Falcons and nearly delivered a Super Bowl iconic catch. Nearly delivered an iconic catch that should go down in history. But he has been snubbed out by NFL historians. Or could the truth lie within his complicated and untimely broken relationship with team owner Arthur Blank? That marriage with Arthur Blank. And you know, you have to wonder, why wouldn't Arthur Blank want to meet with his most valuable asset? And I'm gonna say most valuable even over Matt Ryan. I mean, not doesn't taking nothing from what Matt Ryan has done, and what he has accomplished, his tenure here. It was a great run for Matt Ryan. But Julio Jones was the game for the Falcons. And there are some that said that, uh, and it's a 50-50 controversy, I believe, saying that Julio Jones needed Matt Ryan. And there are some that says Matt Ryan needed Julio. I'm on that side that says that Matt Ryan needed Julio. And somebody say, well, Cowboy, why would you say that? Well, some of those catches that Matt Ryan threw, if he had thrown it to any other receiver, they would not have been caught. You have to agree with that. You remember when Michael Vick was here? There were a lot of balls that were thrown that were dropped because Michael Vick threw the ball. He needed a grand receiver, a great receiver. And Algie Crumpler was that receiver for Michael Vick. Now, granted, other receivers did catch Michael Vick ball, but they didn't do it consistently. Algie Crumpler consistently caught Michael Vick balls no matter how they were thrown. And it's the same instance in this scenario, I think. But this video is about the relationship of NFL great Julio Jones and the NFL, and not Julio Jones and Matt Ryan. You know, with Julio Jones' historic stats, the rival, the legends, the game, you can't help but bring up Julio Jones' name in the conversation. Okay, this investigation that we're going to bring out today, guys, is going to uncover how his quiet exit from the league and a strained relationship with team ownership are costing him his legacy at the same time, exploring if the haunting memory of that 28-3 2016 Super Bowl collapse is so powerful that it's erasing his legacy career. And it is a legacy, whether or not he won the Super Bowl or not. Julio Jones created a legacy. So how does a player the other pros are calling, and these are his constituents, if you want to call them his constituents, if you want to call them that, people he's played against, people that don't like him, they are calling this man the prototype for his position. How does he get left off the list? How does the man who got to 10,000 receiving yards faster than anyone in the NFL history get erased from the conversation? So you talking about other great receivers in the NFL. And when you talk about other greats in the NFL, receivers in the NFL, you have to think Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice, he even outdid great Jerry Rice in less time, getting to 10,000 yards. Look, guys, this isn't just about any player. This is Julio Jones, a guaranteed first ballot Hall of Famer, an athletic marvel who owned an entire decade of football. Julio just wasn't just good, he was generational. In the NFL, there's this list, right? And some of you may know about this list, some may not. But in case you don't, there's this list in the NFL. It's not an official list. It's not one that's written down, but everybody knows about it. It's the list of the all-time greats who never won a Super Bowl. And yes, it's a sad club, to be honest with you, to be a part of, but it's a prestigious one. The names on the list puts it in that category, prestigious. You talk about names like Dan Marino, Barry Sanders, Randy Moss, LaDainian Tomlinson. You've got quarterbacks, running backs, defensive monsters. Their greatness is undeniable. But their legacies are always going to have that little shadow of what could have been. With those names in mind, in your opinion, guys, who do you think is the greatest NFL player to never win a Super Bowl? Never won a Super Bowl. Drop that name in the comment section. Who is that greatest player who have never won a Super Bowl? This should be interesting. Drop that name in the comment, guys, and we're going to revisit this again. Because I think Julio has earned that right. It's deserving, so he has done what he's supposed to do. He should be on that list. And granted, with the other names that are on that list, he should be at least on the list. He didn't even get an honorable mention. And I find that so disrespectful for what Julio had done to the game. Now, some may say, well, he had a bad attitude. I don't care. The man put on that helmet. He went out on that field and he performed. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. Now, some may have, some may question his toughness because there were a lot of times he hit that ground hard and he jumps up and he takes himself out the game when the team needed him most. But that man knows his body more than anyone. So some may question his toughness. Hey, and then they say his attitude. I'm going to put it like this. If other players, coaches, past, present, or future, well, he's out of the game now, but past or present, never categorized him as having a bad attitude, people like analysts, sports writers, they can keep that comment to themselves. I didn't see it. I saw an athlete that went out and did everything possible that could be done to help his team win. Yeah, there are times where he took himself out the game where we may have been driving on a third down situation and we needed him in the game, or a fourth down situation where we wanted to make the decision to go for it. There were times where I was like, man, Julio, you should have at least been there as a decoy. But it happens. It happens. I don't think it was an ego thing. I think if he took himself out the game, he was legitimately hurt. I mean, that's just my opinion, guys. But back to this list. When CBS Sports recently dropped its ranking of the best players to never win a Super Bowl, 5 legendary receivers made that list. And Julio Jones wasn't one of them. This omission was so unbelievable, guys. I mean, it sent a shockwave through the entire NFL community. Personally, I had to go back and look at it twice, even a third time, to see if Julio Jones' name really wasn't on this list. I mean, I flipped the page over. I mean, I looked it over. Guys, that report, man, it had to be an old list. I mean, but this was 2025. But today, we're not just asking what happened. We're investigating the perplexed case of Julio Jones being snubbed from this list and what it really says about his career and how we measure greatness in a league obsessed with that one single prize. At this point, the Super Bowl is not even the question, as there have been plenty of greats who never won. And I get it, guys. They say you're not great until you have won that Super Bowl. But this is not what this list is all about. This list is about the greats who have never won. So ultimately, in my opinion, Julio's name should have been somewhere on that list. But let's talk about this list further. And here are some of the legends who did make it and were considered to be greater than Julio. And some may agree with some of these names on the list, and some may not. And granted, guys, most of these names on this list, well, I say the top 10 to 15, you can question whether or not Julio were better than them. Maybe. So let's look at this list. Dan Marino, the Golden Arm of Miami, but no Lombardi Trophy. Barry Sanders, a magician in cleats, retired too soon. Randy Moss, he revolutionized the deep receiver threat. Larry Fitzgerald, the ultimate professional. Terrell Owens, polarizing but undeniably elite. Chris Carter, Steve Largent, Eric Dickerson, Tony Gonzalez, Champ Bailey, Phillip Rivers, Brian Urlacher, Jack Youngblood, Lamar Jackson. Just to name a few, well, Lamar shouldn't be on that list. He's still playing. But just to name a few, just to show you what kind of legends that Julio was competing with. Now, when you get further down on this list, I don't agree with the order. I really don't. I don't agree with the order that because Chris Carter, there's no way he should be that far down on the list. I mean, I don't get it. Eric Dickerson, I could throw Julio somewhere in between after Larry. Okay, from Larry Fitzgerald on down, Julio should have been somewhere in that argument, somewhere in between Terrell Owens and definitely before Phillip Rivers and Champ Bailey. Champ Bailey were iconic, yes, but he's a defensive player. Well, he did play some receiver, but Tony Gonzalez, yeah, he was iconic. Yeah, he Eric Dickerson broke a couple of records, but so did Julio. Actually, when I go through a couple of Julio's accolades, you're going to see that quite a few of these players that I named cannot match Julio in their awards department and or records department that he broke. But these players, I'm not taking nothing from any of these players on this list, guys. My defense is for Julio. Okay. But these are players who defined eras, inspired generations, and yet the ring eluded them. But y'all have to agree, this is a pretty good company where Julio does belong. But somehow or another, his name was ghost on this list. And this was just the first top 20. We talking about Julio was not even mentioned, guys. He was not even mentioned. That means that, you know what? I'm going to go back and I'm going to research and I'm going to get the entire list, the full list of the greats that have never won. And I'm going to actually see what other players got more votes than Julio. Like I said, on that list, guys, once you mention Larry Fitzgerald and Terrell Owens, arguably Julio should have been somewhere in there. Like I said, I think Chris Carter should have been further up, but once you mention Larry Fitzgerald and Terrell Owens, because Terrell Owens didn't do what Julio did, neither did Larry Fitzgerald. Now, when it comes to impact on the game, yes, you can say he belongs in that category. Or so I say Larry Fitzgerald, Terrell Owens, Chris Carter, when it comes to the impact of the game. That's rightful company. Them guys impacted the game, I mean, on the ultimate level, and sure did Julio. But like I said, these guys, they define eras, they inspired generations. So, yeah, they belong on this list because they did not win a Super Bowl. But for some reason, Julio did not make this list. I can't figure it out. But we're talking about a player who, for the entire 2010, was arguably the most gifted and productive receiver in the league. And I'm going to go a bit further and say he wasn't just a great receiver, but a great player, great athlete, because he was more than that to the Falcons. Because on 3 or 4, maybe even 5 occasions, Julio had to play defense after a Matt Ryan's interception or a fumble happened, resulting in him having to run down defenders from behind. There was even a great play where Julio had to play safety on defense on a Hail Mary attempt. I think he did it like about 2 or 3 times in that instances. And guys even went even further, lining up as the quarterback in the Wildcat formation. And guys, I'm going to share this footage with you. I'm going to make sure that look, I be riding through my old hood, but I'm in my. Sorry, guys, I had to mute that for copyright infringement. But you look at this. Most receivers, after their quarterback throw an interception, most receivers are going to give up on the play. And if you look at this, I'm going to rewind this just a tag, guys. I want you to see where Julio is when this interception is thrown by Matt Ryan. You see Julio. You see where he is. He's a good 30 yards, 35 yards behind this guy. And he runs this guy. He comes out of nowhere. And not only does he have enough stamina, now you talking about, I'm going to pause this for just a second. You talking about he had to execute a play, which takes a lot out of you anyway. And then he gets back there. Matt Ryan throws an interception to the end zone. And he had to run this guy down from behind 30 to 35 yards behind him, pull up on him, and end up making a great tackle on the guy. I mean, that was a good tackle. Forceful tackle. That was a great tackle. He may have been tired after that play, but look at this footage, guys. This is another one. He's a good 10 yards behind this guy. And look at that tackle. He played defense. Julio probably could have been a great safety, guys, to be honest with you. He probably could have. He probably could have played safe if you asked him to. And me saying that leads me to a comment that Matt Ryan said about him, and I'll share that with you here in a minute too. But guys, you talking about Julio, what he did on just to play defense, guys. I haven't even got into his offensive accolades yet. That was just a short snippet of what he did, defensively. You cannot deny that. You cannot deny that. Just that alone, guys. I don't know any other receiver that had to play defense as much as Julio had to. I don't. I really don't. I'm trying to think of somebody, and if y'all can think of, help me out. How many receivers had to go turn around and play defense after their quarterback either threw an interception or a fumble happened? Or now I remember Randy Moss had to play defense a couple of times, but he did it mostly on Hail Mary attempts because of his leaping ability. So, but we talking about he had running down players from behind. I don't think nobody ever did it as much as Julio did it, as many times as Julio done it. But we talking about a receiver who made one of the most iconic catches in Super Bowl history, whether you won or lost. One of the most iconic catches in Super Bowl history. A catch that should have sealed a championship for us. But before we even can touch the disrespect of Julio, the snubbing of him off this list, before you even have to touch that, you have to understand the legend. You can't just talk about Julio Jones with a stat sheet. You have to talk about him with a sense of awe. It was like watching Michael Jordan on the basketball court. You throw out when you talk about generational players like Julio, Michael Jordan, you throw stats out the window, and you look at the athlete, the way they impact the game, their production. Stats is a second thought when it comes to talking about generational athletes like Michael and what Julio was able to do on the football field. I think we could have used Julio in more positions than that wideout. I really do. But when the Atlanta Falcons traded a king's ransom to move up and draft him in the 6th round back in 2011, the Atlanta Falcons knew what they were doing. They weren't just drafting a wide receiver. They were acquiring a force of nature. You think about it, 6'3", 220 pounds, but with the speed of a track star and the grace of a dancer. He was a walking paradox. He was too big to be that fast and way too fast to be that strong. What's his name? Former Rams player, Puka. I can't pronounce his last name, guy, but Puka Knuckle. I can't pronounce his last name, guys. But this is what he recently said about Julio Jones. I mean, they said, like he said, he should be the prototype for what everyone looks for in a wide receiver. Like if you don't want to have a wide receiver body, it should look like Julio. This is what he said. That should be the prototype for every wide receiver. Like if you want to have a wide receiver body, it should look like Julio. And that brings me to mind uh, Carolina Panthers receiver. Is he a tight end? And I love the guy. He came from South Carolina, and he built like a tank. And he's just as fast as Julio. Uh, oh, country boy. I can't remember his name, guys. You remember his name? Drop it down in the comment for me. But you know what? I'm not even gonna do that because he's much too, because I wanted the Falcons to actually draft this guy. Uh, and because he was built just like Julio. He's built just like Julio. Xavier Legette. He built just like Julio, just as fast as Julio. Julio just more polished and route running than Legette. But Legette is actually a tight end that went to wide receiver. Julio was just an athlete. He played all positions. But Xavier Legette was a true tight end, turned receiver. And this guy, this is not about Xavier Legette. Let me get off that soapbox. But I did want the Falcons to get him. I hate we didn't get him, but we had to do other things to build for the future, which I'm not mad at. Trust me, I'm not mad at. I just thought that Xavier Legette would have been a prototype replacement for Julio. Just my opinion. But guys, let me know what you think about Xavier Legette. We seen one season of him. He got drafted last year by the Carolina Panthers. So, but check him out. Check out his footage. He's a nice pickup. But anyway, but after a solid decade, you know, Julio played like that prototype receiver. His peakness wasn't just a season or two. It seemed like his peak lasted through his whole entire career until his injury. It was a long, sustained period of just breathtaking dominance. From 2014 to 2019, he was an absolute machine. And get this, uh, he is the first and only player in the NFL history to put up 5 straight seasons with over 1,400 receiving yards. Yeah. Think about it. The names who played this game already: Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, T.O. None of them did that. 5 straight seasons with 1,400 receiving yards. During that stretch, he led the entire league in receiving yards twice, and he was named a first team All Pro twice. Name another receiver that did that, or better yet, came close to doing that. 5 seasons, 1,400 yards, guys. Right now, we're hoping that our receivers now get what, 1,000 yards. But his career is just littered with records that show off his insane ability to eat up yards. He was the fastest player in the league to in history to hit 10,000 career receiving yards, doing it in only 104 games. It took him 104 games to get 10,000 yards. The next closest person to him was Calvin Megatron Johnson, and he did it in 115. He didn't just put up numbers, guys. He put up video type game numbers in the real world. Jones has 3 career games with over 250 receiving yards. No other player in the history of the NFL has done that more than once, and he's done it 3. Jones just wasn't just great. He was a walking nightmare for defenses. Like I said earlier, 6'3", 220-pound freak of nature with speed, power, and unbelievable grace. He was historically and generationally great. He was a cheat code. Julio was an all-out event to watch. He was well worth the ticket to go watch him play. He was well worth getting on the road to go watch him play, whether the Falcons won or lost. A player who completely warped defensive game just by stepping on the field. If Julio's name was on the one of the receivers that was going to start the game, play in the game, defensive coordinator changed their defensive plans. I can rest assure you. Coaches had to double team him, sometimes even triple team him, and on every step. And most of the time, it didn't work. But the Super Bowl, God, that was another story. Every great story, and you have to agree, all his accolades, his yardage that he gained, his records that he broke, were a great story to tell. But every great story has a turning point, right? That one moment where everything changes for Julio, that moment came on the biggest stage in American history sports, Super Bowl of 2016. With an MVP quarterback, Matt Ryan, at the helm and Julio as his unstoppable weapon, we torched the NFC. We became an offensive juggernaut, and against the New England Patriots, they were putting on a clinic. Atlanta is leading 28-20. Guys, I hate to relive it, but it's all a matter of showing the greatness of Julio, right? But Atlanta was leading 28-20 with less than 5 minutes to go. And then Julio Jones makes what should have been one of the most iconic plays in Super Bowl history. And just to give you a taste of what Julio was able to do on the field. Sorry about that, guys. Once again, in my editing, I neglected to take the music out. So, but this guy here was a beast, to say the least. Look, I mean, you don't see receivers do this you see most receivers do this once in a while. This was normal play for Julio Jones. I mean, you put it up in the air, he was going to go get it. And the one throw, guys, that I think that hindered Matt Ryan and oh my goodness. But anyway, it is what it is. I may get copyrighted for that, but that one throw that I think hindered the success of Matt Ryan and Julio was that back shoulder fade into the end zone. Matt Ryan could not put enough touch on it, enough English on it, if we say, to make that play complete. We always attempted it. But it never came into fruition for Matt Ryan and Julio. That backside shoulder fade. But back to that catch, guys. I mean, this is another footage. Like I said, Matt Ryan just had to throw it up in the air. And that's one thing I hated too. Julio was so fast. A lot of times, Julio had to stop, slow down, and that's the catch, guys. That's the catch. But a lot of times, Julio had to slow down to catch Matt Ryan. Because, I mean, the guy was phenomenally fast, guys. I think most quarterbacks would have had trouble throwing to Julio. I do believe so. The guy was fast. Now, there were a few times he caught him in stride where Julio could keep running and making plays. But Julio was generational, guys. He was generational. Whatever list that the NFL could come up with, as far as an offensive receiver, Julio needs to be on that list. But that catch, you talking about a sideline throw, he leaped, twists his body in midair, snagged the pass, and somehow dragged both his toes inbounds for a ridiculously 27-yard gain. It was an impossible catch for a lot of receivers. A play that should have said, like I said earlier, a play that should have sealed the championship. It put the Falcons in easy field goal range, giving us a chance to go up by 11 and all but end the game. But what happened next is a nightmare. A sack, penalty, a punt, and just like that, the dream unraveled. I'm not going to go back and relive the whole thing, but you talking about the passing game. Uh, we lost it 34-28 in overtime, and Julio Jones, despite his heroics, he was targeted an unbelievably just 4 times the entire game. A fact he later admitted was frustrating. And being Julio, I would have become unglued. 4 times in 4 quarters. That's a pass a quarter, guys. Now, granted, like I said earlier, there were times during that game too where Julio was needed and he took himself out the game. One of those times was actually shown on camera. So whether the play was actually for him or he could have been used as a decoy, he was needed on the field for his team. Like I said, I'm not knocking him. He may have been hurt. He may have been winded, which he rightly should have, but that's not saying that his game still wasn't phenomenal because 4 catches for 87 yards, that's a brilliant performance for most receivers. But we're not talking about most receivers. We're talking about Julio Jones. But it was all buried in that rubble of that historic collapse. We talking about Julio Jones. So we can't put him in the. We have to because he did play. He is an NFL receiver, so we do have to categorize him with other receivers. But like I said, 4 catches for 87 yards. That's not Julio like. That's normal for any other receivers. So like he may have had a right to be mad. He's has the right to be frustrated about that Super Bowl. But we should have won it, and two, being targeted only 4 times, that should have been an easy 125-yard game for him, maybe more, with the momentum that he was on, because he was on a beam that game. I mean, he wasn't dropping nothing. He was selling plays, throwing blocks. He was doing something. Oh man, he was doing a lot that game. But that historic collapse may be a stain on his legacy. Which brings us back to the day and the CBS Sports list that kicked off this whole debate. The article named the best players to never win a ring at the receiver spot, and the other 5 legends: Chris Carter, Steve Largent, Terrell Owens, Larry Fitzgerald, Randy Moss, all who are Hall of Famers, no question. But leaving out Julio Jones is staggering. Here's a guy who, by almost any metric, was more dominant for a longer stretch of time than all of these names on this list. How could he be possibly left out? I mean, it don't even feel like it wasn't even an accident. I'm feeling like it was more of a statement. And it forces us to ask the uncomfortable question, why? Why was he left out? To understand this, we have to look past the highlights, dig into the numbers and the narrative that shape a player's legacy. And when you pull up Julio's career stats next to the receivers who did make the list, one thing jumps out off that page, and that's the amount of touchdowns Julio has. Julio Jones finished his career with 66 receiving touchdowns. It's a respectable number for sure, but it's just not in the same league as the others that are on this list. Terrell Owens and Randy Moss are in a different universe. Terrell had 153, Randy Moss had 156. Chris Carter had 130, Larry Fitzgerald 121, even Steve Largent, who I think Julio should have outbeat on this list, he hit the century mark with 100. So Jones' 66 touchdowns have tied him for 61st all time, which is a world away from his elite ranking in yardage. So what's the deal with the low touchdown total? It definitely wasn't a lack of talent. The main reason comes down to how the Falcons used him. Jones was the guy who would get the team from their own 20-yard line down to the 20-yard line. He was that guy. If you need to get down there in a hurry, Julio Jones was that guy to get the ball to. His yards after the catch was undeniable. There wasn't enough speed on the defense to catch him. So if he does catch it, you better be right up on him. That's the only way you're going to get him to the ground. But if you have to play him from behind, forget about it. But like I said, if we needed to get from our 20-yard line down to the opponent's 20-yard line, Julio was that guy. But it was once we got into that red zone, our Achilles heel. Defenses would just collapse on him, double team him, triple team him. It was normal to see how he drew the double coverage, or even to see the triple coverage, which would open up scoring lanes for any other guys like Mohamed Sanu, or one of the running backs coming out of the backfield. Julio Jones was the main course that got the team to the dinner table, but he wasn't always the one who got to eat dessert. The list was for the best players, not the most productive. But it sure seems like the touchdown stats weighed heavily on that decision. It's the only one stat that stood out from the rest. The other thing that you could point to is how his career ended. While his peak was in the stratosphere, his decline was pretty sharp. After that 2019 season, the injuries started to pile up. His final few seasons split between the Titans, Buccaneers, Eagles were just a shadow of his former self while he was chasing that ring. He missed 27 games over the last 4 years, and the production just fell off a cliff. In contrast, you have a guy like Larry Fitzgerald who was still effective well into his late 30s. So it's possible that his late career slide unfairly colored the perception of his entire career for some people. Not for me, though. But does any of that really justify the snub, how he got left off that list? Jones has more receiving yards than Steve Largent, despite playing 3 seasons fewer than Steve. He has 170 fewer yards than Chris Carter, despite playing 4 fewer seasons. His career average of 87.9 receiving yards per game is the second highest in NFL history. These aren't just good stats. These are the numbers of a player who completely dominated his era at the most fundamental part of his job, gaining yards. The omission feels less like a fair critique and more like somebody put away too much emphasis on one stat and ignored a mountain of evidence of his greatness everywhere else. Now, before I wrap this up, guys, this is where the debate really gets interesting. I want to know what you guys think. Was this fair leaving Julio off that list? Or was it a massive sign of disrespect to one of the most dominant receivers to ever lace him up? Should touchdown totals outweigh all-time yardage and game-breaking performances? And while we're thinking about it, who do you think is the greatest NFL player to never win a Super Bowl? Don't forget to drop that comments, and any other comment. Don't forget to drop the comments in the comment section. So let me know your verdict down in the comments. And if you're enjoying this kind of breakdown, guys, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so that you don't miss the next one. Because I promise you the next one is going to be even better. But so what did this shocking omission actually mean for Julio Jones' legacy? Right now, it just feels like a slight. It's a hot take that gets people talking. But in the long story of football history, is nothing more than a footnote on a spectacular career. Lists like this, greatest players that never won a Super Bowl ring, they're subjective. That's what they are. They're a matter of a couple of people's opinion. They're made by people with their own biases and their own criteria. They're not meant to start conversations. They're only meant to start conversations and not end them. The truth is that Julio Jones' legacy isn't defined by a Super Bowl ring or his spot on somebody's list. It's written by the 7 Pro Bowls that he was in, the 2 first team All Pro selections. It's defined by his spot on the NFL's 2010 All Decade team. It's defined by the fear he put into defensive coordinators and the absolute respect he earned from his peers, who consistently voted him as one of the best players in the entire league. Other players and coaches talk about him like he was a myth. His quarterback, Matt Ryan, said Julio could be a world champ at anything: boxing, sprinting, baseball, whatever he wanted. He was a complete package. He could burn you deep, outmuscle you for a jump ball, and run routes with the precision of a surgeon. Logically, his spot on the best who never win at all club should have been guaranteed. But history isn't written by logic. It's written by narratives. And Julio's narrative got completely hijacked by one catastrophic game. And even in a game that will forever be remembered for a total team meltdown, Julio was brilliant in that game. But Julio's legacy lives on in the memories of every fan who watched him glide down the field, making impossible catch after catch, make it look routine. He was a beast in the postseason. If the Falcons had just held on to the Super Bowl, he likely would have been the MVP. The fact that he doesn't have a ring is part of his story, a tragic, nonetheless, a what if that will follow him, just like it follows Dan Marino, Barry Sanders, and the other legends on that list. But it doesn't, and it shouldn't take away from his greatness. Julio Jones is a stone cold lock for the Hall of Fame. And when that gold jacket is finally placed on his shoulders in Canton, nobody's going to be talking about this CBS sports list. They'll be talking about his unmatched dominance, his athletic grace, and his rightful place among the greatest to ever play the game. The snub might have people talking now, but a legend's career echoes forever. Guys, I hope you really enjoyed this content. It's a travesty to me, in my opinion, that Julio never made this list. But if you've enjoyed this content, guys, please like this the video, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you ring that notification bell so that all the videos that I post, guys, come to you, get notified. But we're gonna have fun this season, guys. I have another video coming up shortly, right after this, matter of fact, and you definitely don't want to get this one. It's my appreciation to you guys. So stay tuned for that. And as always, guys, until the next time we're able to get together and share information, rise up. Peace. Huddled up, Atlanta Falcons fans. This is Emmanuel, aka Cowboy. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a like below, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button for notifications so that you can be notified when we drop future content that you may also enjoy. So until then, thanks again, and see you at the Super Bowl. Rise up.